Step 6. Generate more obstacles. At the moment our code generates just one vertical obstacle. We need to put obstacle generation code into the forever loop so that it keeps generating more and more obstacles. Inside of our forever loop, we should have the while loop for element obstacle of obstacles, change x by -1. And then we have our pause, which is at the end here, but we have set empty obstacle y to pick random 0 from 4, and for index from 0 to 4. This code we already wrote. It's not in our forever command, but it is in our onStart command. So all we're going to do is pull this code here from our onStart and put it in our forever. So set empty obstacle y, if I click on that one, it's going to pull everything below it too. And then I'm going to scroll down, and I want to put it between this green block and the blue pause block. So I'm going to click on the set and put it above it, and then we're good to go. So if we open our emulator now and I play this, it's going to generate obstacles over and over and over again. And you'll notice that there's no space between them, which makes the game incredibly hard to play. And that's what we're going to deal with here in the next step. Now our screen is full of moving obstacles. Create some space between generated obstacles. Let's introduce a ticks variable to count how many iterations the forever loop has done, and execute obstacle creation only if tick is divisible by 3. So inside our forever loop, the code we just brought in, we want to put a logic statement around that and only execute that code every 3 times. So in our logic, we want the if statement, and if I wrap above that, that'll go around all of the rest of the code. I don't want the pause inside of it, so I'm going to pull the pause block outside of that logic statement. If we're going to do a comparison, so from our logic comparison, pull that into the true space, and we want remainder of ticks divisible by 3 if that equals 0. Let's go ahead and make a new variable called ticks. And you can see we have a whole list of variables for this game. Let's do our remainder of the division here. Remainder of something divided by something. If the remainder of, I can duplicate a variable and change it to ticks. If the remainder of ticks divided by 3 equals 0, then we'll execute the code in here. And then from variables, we want to change ticks by 1 every time we run through our code. So now, if we look at our emulator, we have the vertical obstacles, and they're moving along. Every 3 times it moves, it creates more. And although the opening is randomly generated, sometimes it generates a hole in the same spot. Our code is starting to come together. We're almost done. I think the only thing we have left to do is teach the game how to end the game. All right, game over. Last step. Right now, nothing happens when the bird is hit by obstacle. Fix this by iterating over the obstacles array and checking if any obstacle sprite coordinate equals the bird coordinate. All right, you can see we are in the forever loop. I'm looking at the code in the instructions and seeing what matches our code here. We have the while, we have the for element, we have our if statement here, and then we changed the tick and pause. So we need this for element obstacle of obstacles. In the green drawer, the loops, for element, and we want this after our logic, but we don't want our change ticks or pause inside that. Instead of value, we want this to be obstacle. And instead of list, we want it to be obstacles. And then we have if the obstacle x value is equal to the bird x value, and if the obstacle y value is equal to the bird y value, then it'll be game over. So in our logic drawer, we need an if statement. And again, we have that and joiner. So we need an and, which will give us 2 comparison opportunities. And these comparisons both have to be true if we're going to execute what's inside of it, if it's going to be game over. So I'm going to do all of the comparison in one of these and then duplicate that and put it in the other space here. So we want sprite x value. I'm going to duplicate that for another sprite x value. And instead of sprite, I want this to be obstacle. And instead of sprite over here, I want it to be bird. So if the obstacle x value equals the bird x value, now I want this whole hexagon with all of our content inside, and I'm going to right click that and duplicate all of that. I could recreate it from the drawers, but this is just a shortcut or a time saver. Obstacle is right. Instead of x, we want this to be y. Bird, y value. Game over. Just like so. All right, let's open up the emulator, take a look at it. I'm gonna hit play. All right, obstacle's coming. If I go down, I can go through the wall, go up to the opening, go through the wall. But if I don't move and hit it, game over. All right, it's working just like we want. One last thing that I would say in the instructions here, it has some exercises. You could go further with this and see if you can figure out ways to count and show the Crashy Bird game score. So every time you go through an obstacle, how could you add to your score? Right now it's saying the score is 0. That's because we're not doing anything to count score within our code. Another thing you could try, make the obstacles move faster every time an obstacle is passed. How could you increase the speed that the obstacles come? That'll add some difficulty. All right, see what you can do with those and give it a whirl.